Good evening. The Maplewood Park and Rec Commission is called to order. Let's start with Bruce and say your name, so we'll do a roll call.
Bruce Roman.
Craig Brandon.
Kimmy Porter.
Dorothy Molstead, Chair.
Karen Papa.
Terry Millette.
Nikki Villavicencio.
Thank you. Can I have approval of the agenda, please? Move approval.
Move
Make a
for
motion.
approval of the
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Bruce. Is there a second?
second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have you had time to review the minutes? I'll ask for approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. A second? Any discussion? Comments, questions, revisions? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have new business. And the first item is very exciting. We have a new commissioner. Audra, do you want to take care of the swearing in?
Oh, sure. Chair, members of the commission, I would like you to welcome Karen Papa. She is our newest member to the Parks and Recreation Commission. And Karen, if you'd want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you were interested in joining the commission, and after that, we'll just read the oath and we'll go from there.
Sure. I would love to tell about myself. So I grew up in Maplewood and went to school here and went to college in St. Paul where I majored in education and became an elementary school teacher. Most of my career was spent teaching in White Bear Lake, 5th grade, at Otter Lake Elementary, but I always lived in Maplewood. My family, I have 4 adult children, 2 sons, 2 daughters, a grandson in 2nd grade, and we built a house on Harvest Park in 1992, and that's where we've been living ever since. And I love the park. I take advantage of it quite often. And excuse me, I do see many, many people taking advantage of using the great parks. And it's always exciting for the 4th of July celebration down on Hazelwood Park. And, I just want to make sure and help keep the parks as great as they are right now. And for all the people of Maplewood and the surrounding communities to come and enjoy all that we have to offer at our parks. So that's what brings me to be on this great committee.
Oh, great. Welcome. We're very happy to have you. So if you're ready, you don't have to stand. If you just would like to read the oath in front of you that I have printed out.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can read that now. Thank you. Excuse me. I, Karen Papa, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Minnesota and faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Commissioner of the Parks and Recreation Commission in the city of Maplewood, in the county of Ramsey, and the state of Minnesota, to the best of my judgment and ability. So help me God.
Thank you very much.
Thank you and welcome.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Another item of new business is cartograph and 2019 playground ratings. Audra?
Okay, Chair, members of the commission, tonight we have our Public Works Director, City Engineer Stephen Love here. Quite some time ago, we mentioned at the meetings that we were looking at a way to do asset management here in the city of Maplewood, and Cartograph was the software that was chosen for us to move that process forward. And Steve is the expert on all things Cartograph, so I'm going to let him take it from here and tell you even a little bit more about it, how we're using it, and the exciting things that we're doing with Cartograph software going forward with the city of Maplewood. So with that, I will turn it over to Stephen Lowe.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, good evening. I'm excited to be here. What I have for you today isn't really like a presentation. It's more of showing you what our system is and how we're using it. And I would encourage you to feel free to interrupt me and ask any questions as we go along here and just kind of keep it as a little bit of a dialogue here. So what we have here is Cartograph. This is what's on the screen in front of you. It's our asset management for the entire city. It is a web-based program, which is really nice because that means it will work on anybody's machine in the city, and we don't have to worry about one person's computer not being able to run the program and somebody else being able to. So Audra and her staff, as well as park maintenance staff and myself, have been working very hard on getting our assets in. So the first part of asset management is what do we have, right? And so I'm just going to go through a few things here real quick. So in the system here, I'm turning on parks. Now, what this land represents, I have all the green colors here. These are all the parks, open spaces, preserves, as well as county parks, and as well as, for example, the City Hall campus. And the nice thing with this system is you're able to really kind of sort through things. So very quickly, we can look in here and say, okay, we want to look at all our parks that are classified as a neighborhood park. And we also want to see only the ones where the ownership belongs to Maplewood. So very quickly, we can look at this and see that we have 24 parks that we've got currently in the system that are classified as a neighborhood park. This is not including our athletic fields and our mini parks. So it allows us to really quickly find the data that we're looking for. Turn on a few more here. So the next one that we have is our playgrounds, and we'll get into the ratings here in a little bit. One of the nice things with this system is I can quickly take a look at the different parks that we have and what the inspected playground inspections are. I can go into each individual playground. If I'm interested in seeing what the inspection looked like, I can access it really quickly. And I can see who has inspected it, what the last inspection was. This happens to be one of our newer parks, so obviously it's in really good condition. And there would be room for them to attach notes. If there was things that were of issue, they could also attach photographs if we want to capture that while we're doing an inspection. And then in the end, when we start looking at trying to prioritize which playgrounds need to be improved, we have this information readily at our fingertips. Now I'm just going to turn on a bunch of layers here to kind of show you everything that we have in the system right now related to our park system. And it's going to be a lot of clicking here, but it'll all make sense here in a moment. So what we have put into the system, the biggest challenge is gathering data on everything that we have, right? What do we have? What's in our park system? For example, you can see we've cataloged 224 benches. Not only do we know how many benches we have, we know where they're at. For example, if we come in here, I believe this is a bench. Oh, maybe not. What color did I make the benches? Oh, they're blue. Here we go. So here's a bench. And we've just started gathering the data on them, but eventually we'll be capturing things such as if there's a specific manufacturer, what type of material it's made out of. Is it a wood bench? Is it a metal bench? Is it a painted bench? Is it painted green? Is it painted blue? So if the idea is we have this information, we know what's in our parks, and then we also can, if we want to start inspecting the benches, we can do that. That's not our number one priority for inspections right now, but you can start capturing that. So if somebody reports, hey, this bench right in this location is broken, before our guys would have to go out, find that bench, which bench is this? Okay, this is what's broken on it. We need to go back, because we don't have the right material. They can look at all this information before they go out there, get what they need, and actually go out and make a repair. So it really starts producing a lot of efficiencies with staff. And I think one of the things this does as well is it starts telling the tale of how vast our system is that we have to maintain. As you can see right now, we have 29 playgrounds in the system. There's a total of 35 parking lots that are not only, they're mainly in the park system, but they are also like our City Hall campus, our fire stations. We have 16 park structures, so that would be like your shelters that people would use. Park amenities, there's 350, and I'll turn a few of these off and kind of show you, again, the power of what this system is able to do. And we're still talking about what we have. It's a lot of things to turn off, but so really quickly, I can start looking in here and I can see that we've got grills, we've got trash receptacles, we have recycling, satellite toilets where we typically put them. So if, let's say our maintenance staff, who normally is the one that's responsible for putting out the satellite toilets, is no longer with us. Okay, where do we put them? Who knows how many we order? All that institutional knowledge typically gets lost when the next person leaves. This is a way to capture that and maintain that. It also allows you, again, to really quickly come in here and say, I'm really interested in, Audra gets a phone call, she's not in, it gets transferred to me, the last resort, right? The low person on the totem pole. How many grills do we have in our park system? Well, I can really quickly see that we have 15 grills currently in our system. So you can see it really, you're able to capture a lot of this data that before was either in a spreadsheet somewhere, piece of paper, or in a lot of cases not even known. One of the things that we've also been doing is that it's tied to our park system. Not only in it, but how do you get to it, is our sidewalks and trails. So we now have all the sidewalks and trails mapped out. We still have to update this year's construction to put it in there. But we're very quickly able to see, in the light gray is the sidewalks and in the dark gray is the trail. So we can see where gaps are as we look at, where do we make investments into pedestrian improvements. A good example, let's say, is on White Bear here. You will see that there is a segment here, a gap, a segment here, and a gap here, and then a segment there. It allows us to start being a little more strategic about where do we invest that money at that we have to make improvements. It also helps somebody if we get a phone call and somebody says, hey, do you maintain something? And if the right person isn't there, they're able to click on this. Well, its ownership is Maplewood, so yes, they're able to find that information and be more responsive to the callers. We're also managing our EAB. We have currently 9,600 trees that are mapped in our system. Most of these are our boulevard trees. We do have some of our park trees in there, but we're using this. We have a forester that will go out, and as part of the EAB removal, he goes out, he's able to really quickly come in here and say, okay, we're really interested in seeing, we want to know how many ash trees that we've got in our system. So I can see that we have 2,058 ash trees that would, but you want to go a little bit deeper. How deep do you really want to go? Well, I believe the mountain, don't quote me on this, but if I remember right, the mountain ash, I believe, is not susceptible to EAB. So if we take that out, we got 2,050 trees. So if he's going to go out and inspect an area for EAB, he can quickly look on here and see which ones are ash trees. Then if we find EAB and we need to remove them, we can create tasks that will automatically then be assigned to our public works crews for that tree removal. When they remove them, that retires the asset, the particular tree. But the history of it lives on in the system then. And so you can say in 2 years, well, how many ash trees have we had to take out? And how many have we planted? And we'll be able to have that information. So really the first part of asset management is just getting a hand on what you have. And so that's one of the main areas we've been concentrating on. However, the next is what condition it's in. And this kind of leads into what we've been working on here lately is with our playgrounds and the ratings of them. So as I mentioned, we have 29 playgrounds in our system right now. I'm very quickly able to see on the screen here which ones have slides, platforms, small accessories, steps, swings, and if there's any notes off the last inspection. If we go in and look at it, let me go to a different one. Gladstone. Let's look at Gladstone. So right away, we can come in here and we can see the last few inspections. We can see who did them. And we can also see attachments. So for example, if I've never seen this and somebody's talking to me, you know that part that sticks up way in the air, I can be, does it look like a water tower? Yes. Is it the taller one? Yes. So really quickly, you're able to have these conversations with people as they call in. The nice thing with this then is we're able to quickly export any data that we have into a spreadsheet so we can do some analyzing. So this is a spreadsheet showing our current ratings. We have the park name here, and we have the inspected OCI. So this is the last inspected condition of the parks. It's on a scale of 1 to 100, and we set this up to be very similar to how we rate our streets. We do our streets on what's called a pavement condition index. It's on a scale of 1 to 100. The nice thing is we're going to do that with anything that we inspect for the city, so that when we go to council, the council has a general idea of what a 50 is, and versus we have 5 stars for parks and thumbs up for benches and 1 to 20 on grills, so it keeps it all the same. So as we talk to council about why is this park the one that we need to replace, we can go down here and we can see that some of 3 of our lowest ones, Harvest, Sherwood, and Hazelwood, are 3 of our lowest parks based off of our park inspections. And the nice thing is we do these park inspections every year. So one of the things that I have seen with roads, but you would also see this with parks, is sometimes things accelerate and they break down quicker, right? We see that with our roads with the harsh winters, where you have one road that's okay-ish, and then come springtime, it's potholes everywhere. So we do inspect these playgrounds each year. And we do the CIP. We revise the 5-year CIP every year. So we're able to be constantly checking: is the plan that we've got, the next 5-year plan, making sense with what we're seeing for our conditions? It also helps you kind of plan out. You start thinking, well, okay, how are we going to afford to do all these different park improvements? And you can start prioritizing. Well, what can we get done? What might that cost? So this is certainly going to be a big tool in that. The other aspect of this is now we track all our requests. So requests that come in from residents, we are tracking them in the system. We've recently started tracking park requests in there as well. This every time a park request gets logged in, it automatically sends an email to Audra, as well as Scott Schultz, who does in charge of our park maintenance. So they get an email right away saying, hey, somebody's got a new issue, and we're able to look at it and decide, okay, is this something we take away, answer? Is it a phone call back? Do we need to send a crew out? And then we have a history of that. So since we've gone live in the city, we've had 2,463 requests. A lot of that is public works, because the streets and stuff went online first. But we can come in here, much like you've been seen here, and I can look at like, for example, I want to see all the requests that are related to Park and Rec. And I'll say, or the department is park maintenance. So this is either or, right? So if somebody accidentally logged it in under Park and Rec instead of park maintenance, we're able to see both of them at the same time. And we've had 207 requests that have came in from residents since we've gone live. So it's a way for us to track it. We can also further filter it and say, okay, we can filter it by what's open, what's closed, what's in progress. Again, if Audra is busy and for some reason somebody calls me with a question, I can look in here and see if it's an active request. I can also look to see if, you know what, maybe our maintenance staff has put notes on, part is on order, and, you know, will be fixed once it's in. Again, keeping track of the requests we're doing and getting that work done. The other aspect of this is as they start doing work in parks, they can start tracking the costs that they're doing to maintain things. So, for example, on playgrounds, if they're out there inspecting a playground and there's a broken chain, they'll probably create a task to replace the chain. They probably have the chain with them already. They'll put that in. They can put their time and their cost into it. So when we start looking at things like playgrounds, and this, we're not quite here yet, but we're getting closer. We're just starting to do this. We're able to look at a summary of what that overall cost is to maintain that playground. The nice thing with this system is that you're able to associate these things. And let me go back here. And I'll turn on Parks. So Parks is our overall container. So it houses everything that's in that park. So if Audra gets a phone call and well, what all do you have in that park? She's able to come here and quickly look, and so far, you know, we have 22 benches associated with this particular park. A lot of them have to do with this fly area here because each stone block is another bench. You can see there's 8 park amenities, there's playground equipment. Pretty soon we'll have our trails and our sidewalks that are within the park associated. So you start getting this idea of what overall is the park made of. And then as you put in the cost for maintaining that park, what is this overall park costing the city to maintain? What are we needing on an annual basis to keep it operating in the way it is? So it can become a future tool for, you know, making sure we've got appropriate funds to maintain the system. So really, you know, I think of asset management in 2 things. What do we have? Well, actually 3 things. What do we have? What condition is it in? And a planning tool for funding and repair and large projects. So, you know, what do we need to do to maintain the system at a certain rank? And that's kind of where we're at. Probably the next asset that from talking to our staff at our last month's meeting that we talked about maybe looking at implementing inspections. And these inspections are custom made to each asset with working with both Park and Rec and Park Maintenance. Would probably be our shelters, you know, getting a rating system on those. What condition are they in? What things do we want to track the condition of? You know, is it the roof? Is it the pad? You know, so we'll be looking at probably implementing that next. So with that, that's kind of what our system is, and I'm available for any questions or thoughts.
Now, does anybody have access to this in the city, or is this just for?
So we have our Park and Rec and our Park Maintenance staff have access to this. So there's a number of people that have access to it. We have engineers that have access. Our maintenance people have access to it. So there is a number of staff that do have access, but all of Park and Rec and Park Maintenance do.
What a fun toy. Oh my goodness, there's so many things you can look and find and see. I think it's fabulous. Thank you for sharing. Any other comments?
So it looks like a lot of work goes into setting this up. I mean, hopefully it's not so complicated that, that people have trouble using it, because you whip through it, but I know how it is with, if you don't use it every day, sometimes it's not quite so easy.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, yes, so it is a lot of work to set up. There's a lot of work on the front side, but we involve the staff in that setup. So we do a lot of things with pull-down libraries so that everybody's using the same language, so you can find what you're looking for, so that there isn't 24 ways to spell Wakefield Park, between capital letters and everything. But then the staff is actually, with Park and Rec, it was one of the most challenging areas because we didn't have a system. A lot of, like our streets, we had a system that we were moving over to, or we had records in a certain way. Park and Rec, Audra and her staff, as well as park and maintenance staff, did a lot of work. I think actually the Park and Rec staff did a lot of work.
And we had an intern this summer that did a lot of cataloging things in the park. That was very helpful. But yeah, you have to go out physically and count and log and, yeah.
And so it is a lot of work, but one of the advantages of this system, when we looked at other systems out there, is no matter what you're looking at, whether I'm a mechanic or I'm street, or sewer, storm, we've got all that in this system. It all works the same. So if I'm talking to Audra and I'm used to doing with streets, I could say, Audra, have you ever tried to filter by the inspections? She can tell me exactly how to do that, even though she doesn't know anything about streets, because it's all done the same way. It's all this same interface, which there's a number of systems out there that, depending which asset you're looking on, it is totally different. So you're having to train every staff differently. So, but yeah, it's certainly getting it in their hands is where the power is, because they become the day-to-day users, and then they really know their system. But we tried to really kind of accelerate that by having them be part of the building process of it.
So I have a question. I was looking at the rankings and the ratings, and the ones on the lower, are they used to determine who gets priority replacement things?
Yeah, Chair, members of the commission, that's a great segue. I actually was going to finish up with that at the end of this if there are other questions about the cartograph software, but I'm definitely going to address that, and that's one reason this is so important, so.
Okay. And this might be part of what you were, I was going to say, is there a way we could get a printout of this one showing the percentages so that we are aware of that for our meetings in advance?
Well, Chair, members of the commission, that's when we do this typically. Before, we've done it not through the system, but I always had brought those to you. And it's later this year because we were taking the old way and making sure it made sense, and we were comparing apples to apples instead of, with amenities. And so now this is kind of, he's showing you this, but this is actually us bringing it to you. That's why it was the second half of this new business item this is the rating system for 2019. This was just finished and completed. And if you're okay with it, I'll just keep going then. So as you can see, the bottom playground, I mean, we've got so many playgrounds, and a lot of them need work, but the ones on the bottom are, the worst are Harvest, Sherwood, and Hazelwood. And there's other factors other than just, if it's the very last playground, that's the one we do because we base it on, are there other projects coming up? Are there things happening in that park? Hazelwood and Harvest both have master plans in the CIP already, and that playground is going to be part of that overall process. And then it's also service area. So so we don't end up with a bunch of playgrounds in one area being bad. We look at the ones that are in the worst shape, and then we look at the service area. Have we replaced one in the south end or the north end or in the central? So trying to balance out where we replace the parks and their usage, and that all factors into it. And Harvest, which I'll be talking to you about in a little bit, is already set. There's the master planning process. We're on our way to doing that. Hazelwood is up in the CIP already set for looking at the entire park, including the playground. Sherwood then would be our choice for the playground to replace because it is in a service area. We haven't currently replaced a playground. We did one at Nebraska, and then last year was Maple Crest. So for 2020, then looking ahead for the CIP, Sherwood is the park that we're looking to replace. And that's kind of, how we get to that determination. So I wanted to, are there any questions about that? But that is what staff is looking to do, is to bring that before council to have that park be the one to be replaced in 2020.
So the three that are the worst shape or whatever right now, they're all very close to each other. Do you think it's the neighborhood or is it the structure? What is it being used more than others, just that area?
You know, that's hard to tell. I think part of the reason Hazelwood and Harvest have stayed on the list for a while is because there are community athletic parks, and so big master plan projects were planned to over, and so they kind of unluckily
used more.
they were put on hold because they're going to be part of a bigger process. Where in a mini neighborhood park or something, the playground may be like at Maple Crest. It was pretty much the entire park, so that was an easier decision to replace it because you don't want to just replace the playground when you do a master plan later, and then you wanted to move the playground to an entire different area of the park, or, so I think that factored into why Harvest and Hazelwood are toward the bottom. But the good news is they're in the CIP, they've been identified in the, the 5-year plan to address the entire park, including the playgrounds.
I think Harvest Park is actually over 30 years old, so just, having the aging equipment is a big reason why, but I think it's held up really well, considering, it's been there for that long, and it's got constant activity too, so that's exciting that there is, a plan in place for
Yeah.
it.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, so when I talk to people about street ratings and we're looking at a rating system like this, I always caution people that, we're talking degrees of bad. So if you're talking a 29 or a 36, you're talking degrees of worn out, right? It's not just when they're at that level, you're not going to walk out and just be like, oh yeah, that's certainly a 36 compared to a 29. But this is a system that allows us to start putting some data behind why we're prioritizing among the other items that Audra mentioned, such as service area.
And I will add too, none of these playgrounds are at a level where something is unsafe. This is based on what they are, but when the staff does inspect the playgrounds, anything that's considered a danger or not up to code or needs replacement, that becomes an immediate priority. So just know that those concerns are taken care of, like at Harvest. They've repaired several pieces. They've taken some off if they aren't there. So they're always worried about the safety of the playground equipment, and then this rating system is on top of that. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Good.
I had a quick question, Madam Chair. For the software program, I seen that you had so many requests or comments. How do those get on that program? Is it through the website?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, so a lot of these get entered in by staff. So a lot of times it's our frontline staff, it's our public works and parks receptionists that will take a lot of those first phone calls. There's emails that go to Audra that she might enter in. There might be emails to me for streets that I enter in. So it's a system that essentially all of staff will eventually be using to put requests in from residents.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Do we have any, do we have any unfinished business? I don't think so. Visitor presentation? Commission presentation? But Audra has staff presentation.
I do. Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. It's actually an exciting update to give you. And we've talked about it, and I know I'm just going to just remind everybody a little bit of where we're at now. I had spoke earlier in the year that we were planning to do the master plan for Hazelwood, and that originally had been the plan, and we were all set to go forward with that. But then there have been some changes that have had us kind of change that plan and go from Hazelwood to Harvest. And one of the reasons is the Rush Line is looking at potentially putting a parking lot over for the park and ride at Harvest. And I don't know if many of you are aware of it, we talked about it briefly, and they're looking at locating that potentially in Harvest Park. And so what we decided to do that would make the most sense is kind of flip-flop Harvest and Hazelwood, so that when we're doing this potential parking structure and making it work, that we make it work into the whole scheme of the park, because we'd hate to do something like that potentially and then come back and, what are the park needs, and then be kind of pigeonholed into doing something, to react to that, versus let's all work together and come up with the plan as we go and see what would be best for the park and ways we can kind of tie what we need in the park and make sure all the needs are met of the residents. And so we decided to, we went to council and in October and got permission from them to go forward with the master planning process for Harvest Park. And so we entered into a contract with the consultants from LHB, and that process and that just happened at the October 28th meeting, and so now we're up and running, and I just wanted to let you know that we have the first potential stakeholder meetings. Tomorrow night, we're meeting with the two churches that are near the property or have interest in it. The First Evangelical Free Church that have the garden plots there, I think when John Addington came and gave us that presentation, and they're doing some upgrades and changes on their property as well, and then the Twin Cities Bible Church, so we're going to be meeting with them. And then after that, we invited everyone who's been a user of both Hazelwood and Harvest Park, all the athletic users, and anyone who's done an activity or might do an activity or an organized activity at Harvest, they've been invited to come and just sit down and just kind of give us their thoughts and ideas, what works at the park, what doesn't, just to get some ideas, just to get things going. And because just to remind you, Harvest is actually one of our community athletic complexes. We only have 2 out of our 36 parks. It's Harvest and Hazelwood. And I think, Terry, to your question about why they're so close together, I think because of the way the parkland probably became available and where it was conducive at the time, that's just where they ended up. So we just want to make sure that we're doing things and we're mindful of making sure it gets the best use for residents and it complements maybe what we're going to do at Hazelwood, further on down the road, whether it be soccer, the ball fields, open space, and all those things. We also have the urban ag piece with Urban Roots right now, currently where the old food group used to be with the farm plot. So there are a lot of moving pieces, so we're just getting the beginning talks together. And then to let you know, LHB will be coming to do a presentation to the Parks Commission in December. So that'll be a really important meeting for hopefully everyone to be at. And there will be a community meeting then. We have the date tentatively set for either January 7th or 11th, somewhere in that time frame, where everyone, so Karen, you'll be getting a letter to your residents if you're near the park. Everyone who lives around the park will be invited. The entire community will have notices posted, and we'll have a big open house meeting for people to give feedback and ideas as well. So any questions on that update with where we are with Harvest Park?
What's the schedule for that, for the rush line, I guess? If they're already talking about parking, I'm just curious what this,
Madam Chair, members of the commission, it's a number of years out yet. Right now, they are working on their environmental aspect, and part of that is impact to surrounding land, impact to, in this case, the park. I believe there's another year or so of that. There's 2 or 3 years of engineering, and then several years of construction. So it's a number of years out yet.
Yeah, and even with the planning for Harvest, this is the master plan. It doesn't mean we're going to start construction or changes in 2020, but it means it's just getting a master plan together of what the park could be and what kind of amenities we'd want to see. It's a great opportunity to just, what would this park look like? Because those of you who are familiar with it, it's a very long park spread out, and there's a very large parking lot there already in a certain area, and that maybe moving that parking lot, there's just so many options to change. There is a tennis court there. There's trails that are used a lot by the neighborhood, so there's a lot of potential for changing the park up, and we just want to make sure we're meeting the needs of the residents now, because things have changed a lot, like you said, in the last 30 years since the park originally had the tennis court and the playground put in and the fields, and so we're excited to begin this project. So.
It's exciting.
Do we know where they're going to put the parking for the rush line? Like on what corner, or?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, so we're very early on in this. The initial thought is the very southwest corner. The idea would be if we were to move that parking lot and make a shared parking structure that has enough parking to both for transit as well as the park. But the big part of doing the master plan would be to make sure that it fits into the park and that the park is essentially whole, even if we have a shared parking spot. So rather than it's not creating two separate parking lots, like we're leaving the one we've got plus another one. They're looking at options there for a shared use facility.
Now, is it a rumor, is there going to be like a assisted living or a elder care there in
Yep.
that area?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, so the council, I believe this was at council recently, that the land to the north where a lot of the community garden plots are, there's going to be a senior living facility there. I believe council approved that here just recently. That's going to take up a portion of that property, and I think their long-term vision would someday to be build a church on the eastern portion of the property. So that we're certainly engaging them, because that also brings another aspect to, who might be using the park. So it's certainly the right time to do a park master plan because you are having some significant changes to the north, as well as this potential future change with the rush line.
So how will are we going to be able to get seniors' input also then on this park, since we're going to have a senior building right there?
Well, Chair, members of the commission, we wouldn't be able to reach the seniors that are not there yet because
Yeah.
it's not built, but the intent is with the open house, the community meetings, we want as many residents to be there to offer input as possible, so everyone will be invited. There'll be specific letters sent out to a certain radius around the park, which is standard procedure for projects, but then it'll also be, publicized on social media and on the website, so, to get people to come and engage. And it's not going to be just a super, one and done project. We want input, like Steve said. We just want to make sure the park is whole and, better than ever. Even with this potential change, just moving some things around, it's a great opportunity to really, look at the amenities that we have and look at how the park's structured and see what we can do going forward to make it even better.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I'd just also like to add that Audra had mentioned that we have a stakeholder meeting with the two churches. One of those churches is the driving force with the senior center. So the people that are initiating that project are going to be part of this planning process for the park. So,
And we've talked in the past, there are different varieties of equipment and exercise things and things that are designed for senior areas that maybe we can be researching that, that we have some of that available when those people arrive.
Yep, absolutely.
So is the parking structure going to be on park property, or, I guess,
Madam Chair, members of the commission, yes, it would be a shared use facility with potentially like a two-story facility, like a parking ramp. Some of the thoughts initially are having it designed so that it looks like a two-story from the south, but from the park it would look like a surface lot because of the grade change there. So there's some advantages putting it to that southwest corner. It pulls it away some from the neighborhood, but there's also this relief, this elevation change between the park and where the road is at that you could take advantage to make it fit better into the system. So again, by accelerating that park master plan to now, we're kind of in the driver's seat of what does this park need, what kind of parking needs do we have, and making sure that as they're moving forward with the rush line design, that it is meeting our needs for the park master plan as well. Versus coming, as Audra mentioned at the end, saying, well, this is what they need, and now we've got to kind of work around it.
I'm a little confused as to how are we obligated to provide parking? I mean, are we going to be compensated? How does this work?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, so that there's still a lot of that is being discussed. They're still looking at how much parking they might need for that transit. They've been doing some studies on how much in space that our activities have held. So a lot of that is being looked at right now. So I don't have an exact answer for you, but that's why we're starting the park master plan process, and that's kind of in the process that they're in right now as well, determining what their need is.
And if I can just add to what Steve said, that's, again, why we thought it would be a great idea to move this master plan up. So that's all uncertain, what's actually going to be happening with that, but we just want to make sure that we know going forward the needs that the community identifies that they want at the park and the things that we have, so we have a good plan in place for, so we're coming at it with, well, this is what the Maplewood residents told us they want, this is what we feel will work best in this park, so we come at that sooner than later. So that's why we felt it was really important to move this process up.
One thing I really appreciated was this past summer, there was a meeting out on the park trail for the residents to come and give their input. And so I just felt much better about that because it was very well planned, and then we could definitely give our inputs on these great big boards that they had set up by using little Post-it stickers, and they just had a wide variety of options, and the residents could give their input. So that was really, really appreciated. And like I said, I think they really thought of all the different, ins and outs of how everything would be affected in the long run. So that was really nice that we were able to do that. And I'm sorry, I forgot my question, so.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, so there is a number of staff, including myself, that sit on a lot of different technical committees related to the rush line. I think one thing, to think about is also this puts a rush line stop right at this park. So you're now looking at, greater access to the park as well and the facilities there. I will say that the rush line is a partner. They have committed to paying for half of our master plan study cost. So they're splitting that design cost with us 50-50, but it is the city's project, and we're leading that effort. Actually, I shouldn't say we. Audra is leading that effort for us. So they are already coming to the table with some money to help accelerate the time frame for this master planning, because we did not, we had this off a couple of years, but we flip-flopped them, and then they are also contributing.
Well, another thing that I was thinking about too, and to kind of bounce off of what Dorothy said, is that in planning for the equipment, I'm just hoping that it would be for people of all ability levels and all age levels and things like that at that particular area, because as you said, it would be much easier for many more people to access the park as it's going to be set up in that manner. So by providing a big variety of options for people of all abilities is also a nice part.
I don't know if I know you have a future meeting, but I'm just thinking about the trail. How will the rush line impact the trail?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, so the rush line is going to sit in the railroad owned by the Ramsey County Regional Rail Authority. It's about 100 feet wide, I think, in this area. So they are planning to keep the trail in parallel with the BRT route. Essentially what this would look like is you would have a road that only the buses drive on. It would be a trail, and it would be running parallel at a distance that's greater than what you see on our streets, right? I think our streets, a lot of times you see 3 to 5 feet of a buffer. There's a much larger buffer in between. And I think on average, they're expecting one bus every 10 or 15 minutes, if I remember correctly. But one of the big advantages of this rush line system versus, I get asked questions about express busing, and the difference is that it's that reliable all-day transportation. So if you are a person that is looking to use it, or a person that does not have a vehicle, you can count on this, and there's going to be a number of stops, and it does run up to White Bear and then all the way down into St. Paul. But it becomes a very reliable form of transportation that you can count on for, okay, this is when the next bus should be coming, and be able to rely on that. So, but it's, in essence, it's going to look like a very underutilized road in some ways, because you don't have all the car traffic on it. with a nice big, a good-sized buffer and a parallel trail.
Now, if that's we're going to call it a parking hub there at Harvest, are you planning on a lot of parking from just riders for the bus? So how far do you have them apart then?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, so that's currently what they're working on, is
Okay.
looking at what that parking need is. So we're still in the very beginning phases of that, as far as the rush line is. They've also started attending throughout the summer a few of the events that were held there to get an idea of what parking levels we have. But a lot of this, the reason why we wanted to advance this master plan is because how might the park change? Who might be using it? What are we going to want there? What services? And what might that do to our requirements? So again, that's the advantage of advancing the planning process to run parallel with them, so that we're not coming to the table after everything is decided and say, hey, you know what, we kind of changed some things and we need another 50 stalls. So we're right in the beginning of that process, and I think for our needs, what our needs are going to be, it's going to be dictated largely by the results of the park master plan.
So will they have hubs like every couple miles, every
Oh,
couple
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your
Yeah,
question.
no.
I'm sorry, I thought you were
No,
talking
no,
about
no.
parking spots. Yes, so there's, in Maplewood, we have a stop at Hazelwood by St. John's, right at their front there. It's going to have a stop on, at the current transit center by the mall, so it'll tie into that system. There'll be this one here, just right at Jarvis in the trail, and then you will have one at Frost, and then another one at Larpenter. So in Maplewood, we have 4 stops. So there are fewer stops, but, again, that's part of providing that reliable
Right.
service.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on, Audra, Nature Center and Rec Programming. Sorry. Nature Center and Rec Program updating. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, sorry, Chair, members of the commission, in the interest of time, I can put the flyers up on the board really quickly. I'm going to plug my flash drive in, but otherwise, it was just to let you know of some of the really cool programming that we had coming up for the Nature Center and our Santa party, so you can just hang on one second. I'm just going to move chairs because Steve and I traded, and just letting you know of a couple of really cool things the Nature Center has coming up. And if you notice, there's a new look to their flyers and their marketing materials. They've been working really hard with the communications department to kind of change up how they're doing their flyers and getting their information out. So I think it's looking pretty good. So just wanted to kind of show them off and let you see that there's going to be a December bird count program on Saturday, December 14th from 9 to noon. You get to drop in and watch and record winter birds on the trails. So all you bird lovers to come out and take part in this. It's a free event, so I highly encourage you to come out and take a look. They have, and these aren't necessarily in the order that they occur, but the full moon walk, these are very popular, and they're doing those again. They've got one on Thursday, December 12th, 6:30 to 8. It is a charge of $5 a person, but they're very cool, and it's a great thing for scout groups, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, to come as a troop all together and come out and look at the full moon, take a walk, and you get to dissect an owl pellet. It's cooler than it maybe sounds, but it's kind of neat to do, and you get to learn a lot and have fun, and they're going to have, I believe, hot chocolate or hot apple cider. And then, this one is this weekend, actually. This one is this Saturday, and I don't know how many of you know about the bath bombs that you put there, all the rage, and you spend a lot of money in the store. Well, they're going to show you how to make your own that are, not only make it yourself, but it's going to be, have ingredients that aren't going to harm the planet. They're all going to be environmentally friendly, and then you get to take it home, and what a neat way to make a gift to give somebody. So that is this weekend. There's still time to sign up. So they just say wear old clothes, bring a large bowl, a spoon, a Ziploc bag, and they have everything else. So. And this is another one. It's toward the end of December. It's a ways. It's after Christmas, but I just thought I'd put it out there because it's a really fun one. It's called S'more Nature Fun, and it's 1:30 to 3. It's for all ages on a Saturday, and it's hiking, snowshoeing. You get to just kind of do your own thing, explore around the nature center, and then come back and make s'mores with the staff that are there. So they've just got a lot of really cool outdoor fun at the nature center. And then I know it isn't even Thanksgiving yet, but I wanted to mention that we have our Santa's Workshop Party. And I don't know if you can see that, but that is coming up on December 13th over at the Community Center from 6 to 7:30. And it's, arts and crafts and games, holiday treats. Santa's there the entire time. You can bring an unwrapped toy for Toys for Tots, and it's just a super fun holiday party. And we're always looking for volunteers, so if you feel extra jolly or want to put on one of your Christmas sweaters, Terry, and come join us. We're always looking for people to help at the cookie decorating table, or help get the kids lined up to see Santa, or just do some of the arts and crafts. So that is all I've got for just programming updates.
Okay, thank you very much. And you're right, their new flyers are fabulous. They're doing a great job on that. And fun stuff coming up from Maplewood. Karen, welcome to the commission. We're happy to have you. Any other comments? If not, we
No,
will-
just move to adjourn. No,
Oh, we'll have a motion to adjourn.
move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, thank you. We're adjourned.